Welcome to the latest edition of Sketchy Go Ichie. I'm your humble host, Roger Andrews, illustrator, designer, content creator. And the content I'm creating for this video is specifically about how to not suck at art. Harsh, I know, but stay with me, I'll explain. Enjoy.
Sketchy Go Ichie.
All right, everybody, let's get right into this. How to not suck at art. Step one, just do art. Just do it. Don't be concerned about what people think about how you draw. Yes, be open to criticism. Yes, be respectful of other people's opinion. However, the art you create is yours to share. And if you don't feel a particular piece is that successful, here's a crazy idea. Do it again. So, how to not suck at art. I think a lot of it is mindset. There's no two ways around it. So I'll show you, I'll give you a little demonstration. I'll just draw a little sort of character. I love this as a starting point. So for anyone who likes to draw characters, particularly ones who are, how would you call it, cartoony in nature, or sort of, I like to call it the word, I like to use the word toyetic. It looks like, a pop figure, or it looks like, I don't know if anybody remembers the Dunnies, those characters from those little vinyl figures from back in the day that people used to customize, and they have different variations on them. But I like this basic form, this sort of pawn shape to start with. And so here's the thing, right? If you like to draw characters like that in this sort of form factor, it's very, very simple to just start with essentially two basic shapes. So let me go back. By the way, I'm working in Procreate on the iPad, Apple Pencil. Okay, so I've altered everything a little bit. I've kind of customized my brushes, and I've customized my Apple Pencil. I'm using an older generation one. I will eventually upgrade. All right, but anyways, so two basic shapes. This sort of irregular, it's not quite a circle, it's not quite a square shape, and this sort of, again, sort of a rounded rectangle. So if you want, that's kind of the building blocks to start any sort of cutesy character. We'll just use that as an example. All right, I'm going to start with this because it's simple and it's something I do all the time. All right, so if you like to render like this, I mean, clearly there's got to be some form underneath it. I think oftentimes what happens is, I think a lot of artists will sort of just start drawing, just being like, well, here's the eye, right? Here's an eye, okay, and, right. Then I'm gonna put a nose over here, and they'll meticulously take their time. Maybe there's a little mouth right there, and then they'll draw the side of the head, and then maybe they'll draw the other eye, and they won't feel so great about it because things won't align, things won't match, and they get really discouraged about it, And the bottom line is, if you're going to render, just lay the pencil down or lay the pen down and start rendering, you've got to have what I like to say, it's kind of I guess it's a gym terminology, working out terminology, is you got to have your reps in. Meaning, you have to have sort of been drawing long enough that the lines you put down are essentially what you want them to be, with very minimal need to change elements of it. Part of what I do, if I do a little character like this, which, by the way, I've never drawn this character before in my life, and it probably shows, but I don't care because it's just a rough drawing. Yes, I'm just rendering in contour line, meaning line only. Right? So it's a funky little guy. I can go back in and refine it, a touch, just so things look a little right. But anyways, so yes, if you're an artist and you just kind of want to just kind of lay down the line and be done with it. I think a lot of that is, I think people want to get to the final place. They don't want to do the building blocks that it takes to be consistent at rendering. So if you see someone who renders really well by just laying the pen down and you want to render like that, you got to get your reps in. All right. So this is how you get your reps in. You work loosely in Sketch. It's going to take either a lot of paper or a lot of documents here on a digital app, but you're going to have to kind of get your building blocks together. And by that I mean is those basic shapes, as I mentioned earlier. Figuring out your eye placement. I generally like to divide that head shape in half, but not in perfect half necessarily, particularly for cuter characters. I'll put that eye line a little lower, that center nose line, that remains the same. That'll help you center the nose and the mouth, all right? And the ears can play off of that eye line, okay? So, and then I'll figure out, roughly where the center point is in the midsection, so I can do the lower half. Because let's face it, the lower half is going to be rooted on the ground in some way. And then, I'll figure out arm placement. All right. But notice, like, nothing is precious at this stage. That's the thing I want to get across to you guys. If you don't want to feel like your stuff sucks, be willing to kind of do some of this sort of foundational drawing first. Okay? And if you start here, you're going to have the basic building blocks to making this work. All right, so I'm going to do a similar character to the one I just did, maybe just slightly more refined, because I have the underpinnings of the art. Okay? So we'll do the eyes. You can start with the eyes if you like. I know some artists prefer not to. Some artists prefer to render the entire outer shape. This is like a preference thing. In terms of drawing eyes, eyes are like any other aspect of art. With practice, you kind of, and study. Like look at how other artists render eyes. Look at eyes in the real world. That is the most helpful thing is to study how other eyes are done. Okay, so that's generally my starting point. I give this guy a really wide nose, and by having that center line, it allows you to have a little anchor point. I know relatively how far I can do the nose off of the center line to make it look symmetrical, because again, this is a straight on point of view, so I want it to look symmetrical. All right, just adding little features to this character and give him his mouth. Again, because I have that center line, it allows me to work from the center line when I create the mouth. All right, some little eyebrows. Alright, so that one's a little off, but who cares? I'm working digitally, so it's easy. And if I wasn't, I would just literally just keep drawing. I would just extend it. Okay, little ears. All of these little things are sort of cartoony versions of the real thing. I've spent many years drawing realistic ears and eyes and nose, but I obviously I really enjoy drawing sort of cartoony, and give them those sort of the dreads like I did in that little contour drawing. When I do, I'm going to kind of render it irregularly. So I think it's, if you're gonna draw hair or anything that's organic, I don't think it should have perfect straight lines. That's just my opinion. So I'll just kind of allow the, allow the pen to kind of drag a little bit. That's how you create organic hair. Just a little tip or trick that I like to, you don't want it to be too organic sometimes, believe it or not. Okay. That's all there is to it. Again, like I did in the previous sketch, I mean, I've drawn hair so many different times in so many different styles and so many different ways. It allows me to kind of have a head start on anyone who hasn't. This is just a visual representation of anyways, so it doesn't matter. Then I'll go in and I'll give it some texture. Right? Notice how like I shift the paper angle around. I say paper, it's the screen, but what that's doing is it's allowing the lines that I render, even though they're squiggly and irregular and not particularly well formed, but I have sort of a directionality to them. That's another key element to kind of making art look a little more, not refined. I don't want to say refined because this is clearly just a loose sketch, but there's something about having your lines go in a direction. Generally, they will taper off the intensity of the line, or the amount of lines that you use to render a certain shape or certain shading, I should say, will generally taper off as you get towards wherever the light source is. And I'm assuming light source would be above in this particular guy. All right, so hopefully in the directionality, look how the lines, they start and stop in one direction. Notice how I'm not going this way, then this way, then this way. I could, particularly because it's hair, it's irregular, it probably could and should, but I just want you to note that I am essentially going along the same plane. I haven't tilted the paper, I haven't tilted the screen much more than just to find a comfortable position. But the lines all go in that same sort of, I guess from your point of view, this is that same sort of vertical angle, right? And they're not fancy, they're not, I'm not meticulously rendering each one of these sort of, these dreadlock hair shapes. Just literally just squiggling in lines. I'm hoping you guys are picking up on that. Alright, so almost done with the hair. Hopefully it didn't take too long, because I don't want these. I don't want you guys to be like, this guy all day long with the hair, please. All right, and then I'll draw some little squiggle lines coming off of it. Another little trick, if you're doing something organic, particularly hair, it's not perfect, right? Just like none of these sketches should be, at least in the early stages, right? It's not perfect. So there's gonna be little doodads, little hairs, little flyaways or flyovers, whatever they're called. Sorry, I got my hair shaved right now, so I don't have the proper hair terminology. All right, so there's that little guy. Okay, so that's his head. So we're gonna finish his little body. I think I did him with a little hoodie on. All right, it's just following the lines, the little construction lines that I set forth earlier. I assume there's the little drawstrings coming off the hood, and a little zipper at the bottom. And I'll zoom in real tight. So we'll do his hands. We'll have these little do the old 3-finger cartoony hand. All right. Little fold there. Okay. Same thing here. Do a little 3-finger cartoony hand. Little fold there. Oftentimes when I'm doing these, I will flip. This little funky thumb over there should be tucked in a little bit better. Excuse me. Oftentimes when I'm doing these, I will draw one side and flip it because I'm working digitally. But I figure if anyone's following along and they're doing this on their on a sheet of paper, which obviously anybody is welcome to do. If you want to follow along, please do so. It'd be kind of cool if you did. And if you do, make sure you share them with me. You go to my Facebook page, Sketchy Go Ichie on Facebook, or go to my my Instagram. You'll find Sketchy Go Ichie stuff there as well. I want you to note, guys, at this stage, I've got this line that cuts through the character. It doesn't matter, right? You probably think, oh, you got to go in there and erase that. Same thing with these construction lines up here. No, actually, I really don't have to erase that. It's a sketch, and this is the starting point, the building blocks. It does not have to be perfect. And if you want to feel good about your art and feel good about what you're drawing, just note, it does not have to be perfect, particularly at this stage. All right? I mean, I don't have to have the absolute perfect, line art and line stroke and weight and thickness and all that stuff. It's not essential. There's a straight line in there. It's funny I say that and then I erase that straight line. But anyways, so quick character design. Is it perfect? If I wanted to, I could go in and I could grab this eye and make it a little more, it kind of matches that other one a little better. Yeah, I could do all of that. Everything along the way I could do. Go back in and, as I mentioned earlier, I could erase out that there. Erase out this extra stuff here. Yes, all of that is certainly doable. But I wanted to create a little toy-like character. And that's all there is to it. Okay, so bottom line, if you don't want to suck at art, be willing to change that mindset and be willing to start off lightly and construct the characters and put your time in and put your reps in doing that and gradually build up the character. And when you do, you'll get to a level where you have confidence doing the more detailed and the more rendered drawings. And just remember, have fun. It's all that really matters in the end. Okay? So, I always sign off with Sketchy Go Ichie, live your moment. That's exactly what I mean. Live your moment, enjoy the art, and happy sketching, y'all. Peace.